Chapter 5 Abraham Part 12 of the Legends of the Jews Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Legends of the Jews Volume 1 by Rabbi Louis Ginzberg. The Akedah. And while they were walking along, Isaac spake unto his father, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where then is the lamb for a burnt offering before the Lord? And Abraham answered Isaac, saying, The Lord hath chosen thee, my son, for a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb. And Isaac said unto his father, I will do all that the Lord hath spoken to thee with joy and cheerfulness of heart. And Abraham again said unto Isaac his son, Is there in thy heart any thought or counsel concerning this which is not proper? Tell me, my son, I pray thee. O my son, conceal it not from me. And Isaac answered, As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is nothing in my heart to cause me to deviate either to the right or the left from the word that he hath spoken unto thee. Neither limb nor muscle hath moved or stirred on account of this, nor is there in my heart any thought of evil concerning this. But I am joyful and cheerful of heart in this matter, and I say, Blessed is the Lord who has this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him. Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac, and they went on and came together to that place that the Lord had spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in that place, and Abraham did build, while Isaac handed him stones and mortar, until they finished erecting the altar. And Abraham took the wood and arranged it upon the altar, and he bound Isaac to place him upon the wood which was upon the altar, to slay him for a burnt offering before the Lord. Isaac spake hereupon, Father, make haste, bear thine arm, and bind my hands and feet securely, for I am a young man, but 37 years of age, and thou art an old man. When I behold the slaughtering knife in thy hand, I may perchance begin to tremble at the sight, and push against thee, for the desire unto life is bold. Also I may do myself an injury, and make myself unfit to be sacrificed. I adjure thee, therefore, my father, make haste, execute the will of thy Creator, delay not. Turn up thy garment, gird thy loins, and after that thou hast slaughtered me, burn me unto fine ashes. Then gather the ashes, and bring them to Sarah my mother, and place them in a casket in her chamber. At all hours, whenever she enters her chamber, she will remember her son Isaac, and weep for him. And again Isaac spoke, As soon as thou hast slaughtered me, and hast separated thyself from me, and returnest to Sarah my mother, and she asketh thee, Where is my son Isaac? What wilt thou answer her, and what will you two do in your old age? Abraham answered and said, We know we can survive thee but a few days only. He who was our comfort before thou wast born will comfort us now and henceforth. After he had laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac on the altar, upon the wood, Abraham braced his arms, rolled up his garments, and leaned his knees upon Isaac with all his strength. And God, sitting upon his throne, high and exalted, saw how the hearts of the two were the same, and tears were rolling down from the eyes of Abraham upon Isaac, and from Isaac down upon the wood, so that it was submerged in tears. When Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son, God spoke to the angels, Do you see how Abraham my friend proclaims the unity of my name in the world? Had I hearkened unto you at the time of my creation of the world, when ye spake, What is man, that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of man, that thou visitest him? Who would there have been to make known the unity of my name in this world? The angels then broke into loud weeping, and they exclaimed, The highways lie waste, the wayfaring man ceaseth, he hath broken the covenant. Where is the reward of Abraham, he who took the wayfarers into his house, gave them food and drink, and went with them to bring them on the way? The covenant is broken, whereof thou didst speak to him, saying, For in Isaac shall thy seed be called, and saying, My covenant will I establish with Isaac, for the slaughtering knife is set upon his throat. The tears of the angels fell upon the knife, so that it could not cut Isaac's throat, but from terror his soul escaped from him. Then God spoke to the archangel Michael, and said, Why standest thou here? Let him not be slaughtered. Without delay Michael, anguish in his voice, cried out, Abraham, Abraham, lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. Abraham made the answer, and he said, God did command me to slaughter Isaac, and thou dost command me not to slaughter him. The words of the teacher and the words of the disciple, unto whose words doth one hearken? Then Abraham heard it all. By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. At once Abraham left off from Isaac, who returned to life, revived by the heavenly voice admonishing Abraham not to slaughter his son. Abraham loosed his bonds, and Isaac stood upon his feet, and spoke the benediction, Blessed art thou, O Lord, who quickenest the dead. Then spake Abraham to God, Shall I go hence without having offered up a sacrifice? Whereunto God replied, and said, Lift up thine eyes, and behold the sacrifice behind thee. And Abraham lifted up his eyes, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket, which God had created in the twilight of Sabbath eve in the week of creation, and prepared since then as a burnt offering instead of Isaac. And the ram had been running toward Abraham, when Satan caught hold of him and entangled his horns in the thicket, that he might not advance to Abraham. And Abraham, seeing this, fetched him from the thicket, and brought him upon the altar as an offering in the place of his son Isaac. And Abraham sprinkled the blood of the ram upon the altar, and he exclaimed and said, This is instead of my son, and may this be considered as the blood of my son before the Lord. And whatsoever Abraham did by the altar, he exclaimed and said, This is instead of my son, and may it be considered before the Lord in place of my son. And God accepted the sacrifice of the ram, and it was accounted as though it had been Isaac. As the creation of this ram had been extraordinary, so also was the use to which all parts of his carcass were put. Not one thing went to waste. The ashes of the parts burnt upon the altar formed the foundation of the inner altar, whereupon the expiatory sacrifice was brought once a year, on the Day of Atonement, the day on which the offering of Isaac took place. Of the sinews of the ram, David made 10 strings for his harp, upon which he played. The skin served Elijah for his girdle, and of his 2 horns, one was blown at the end of the revelation on Mount Sinai, and the other will be used to proclaim the end of exile, when the great horn shall be blown, and they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and they that were outcast in the land of Egypt, and they shall worship the Lord in the holy mountain at Jerusalem. When God commanded the father to desist from sacrificing Isaac, Abraham said, One man tempts another, because he knoweth not what is in the heart of his neighbor. But thou surely didst know that I was ready to sacrifice my son. God, it was manifest to me, and I foreknew it, that thou wouldst withhold not even thy soul from me. Abraham, and why then didst thou afflict me thus? God, it was my wish that the world should become acquainted with thee, and should know that it is not without good reason that I have chosen thee from all the nations. Now it hath been witnessed unto men that thou fearest God. Hereupon God opened the heavens, and Abraham heard the words, By myself I swear. Abraham, thou swearest, and also I swear, I will not leave this altar until I have said what I have to say. God, speak whatsoever thou hast to speak. Abraham, didst thou not promise me thou wouldst let one come forth out of my own bowels, whose seed should fill the whole world? God, yes. Abraham, whom didst thou mean? God, Isaac. Abraham, didst thou not promise me to make my seed as numerous as the sand of the seashore? God, yes. Abraham, through which one of my children? God, through Isaac. Abraham, I might have reproached thee and said, O Lord of the world, yesterday thou didst tell me, In Isaac shall thy seed be called, and now thou sayest, Take thy son, thine only son, even Isaac, and offer him for a burnt offering. But I refrained myself, and I said nothing. Thus mayest thou, when the children of Isaac commit trespasses, and because of them fall upon evil times, be mindful of the offering of their father Isaac, and forgive their sins, and deliver them from their suffering. God, thou hast said what thou hadst to say, and I will now say what I have to say. Thy children will sin before me in time to come, and I will sit in judgment upon them on the New Year's day. If they